did it. I am live. Wait, I gotta record. Okay. Now I'm gonna post to Twitter. This is what I'm still figuring out. How do I do all these things more easily? I'm excited. Well, I'm not excited as I'm typing here. See if I can get more people to join. What am I editing? Oh, I see. I'm still live. This is really exciting, I'm sure. I'm tweeting. Let's see if I can get some sort of audience. I guess that's what you sort of have to do with these daily, with a live stream. You kind of got to be on for a while. This is okay lighting. I'm going to try something. Is that too dark? Yeah, maybe. What I really want to do is bring my mic. Ooh, the shadow is kind of ominous. I don't want an ominous shadow. That's better. I don't have professional lighting. Wish I did, though. Well, for the second day of our live vlogs here, vlogs, I don't know why I want to say vlog. I shaved. Big step. And I put a topic for today's vlog around climate change and privacy, hurricanes on the mind, computational complexity on the brain, and human beings suffering in my heart. And this is all very timely and topical and personal, in that, I live in the East Coast of the United States, and we just had, I think it was still called a hurricane, but the remnants of Hurricane Ida, which first struck in the Gulf of Mexico in Louisiana primarily, and then made its way up over land to the East Coast from Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and barely up to Massachusetts. And up here in where I'm at, in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, we had a lot of rain, a lot of waves, not as much wind, a little bit of flooding. And I sort of thought, oh, that's about it, not so bad. Dodged another bullet. And then I sort of missed the news about, New York and New Jersey, the deaths there, the serious flooding on parts of Queens, in Elizabeth, New Jersey, in Philadelphia, and checking in with various family and friends. At the end of the day, a little bit ago, I realized, wow, this really, did impact people. And um, yeah, and sort of said, wow, this was, not Katrina or Sandy level in terms of hurricanes, that death and destruction and misery, but it's kind of an interesting one because it feels a bit like just a storm that we might have a lot of these now, more of these. So. But getting to the topic at hand, and something that I spoke of yesterday, and I'll speak of again if I can get it set up, is our project. This is kind of a tangent, and I don't want to just be promoting our projects, but talk about some of the motivation for our the work we do with disconnected, low connected kind of devices. And this work we're doing on our wind project, we've actually been thinking a lot about people in situations where battery life is not unlimited. The ability to charge is not something you take for granted. Charge your phone, charge your device. Access to internet is not unlimited. 5G, 5 gigs, but it's kind of unlimited. It's more like 1 gig, and that's very expensive. And often we think, oh, this is someone in a very, oppressive or restricted or developing nation, and we're helping people in lots of places like that. But if you think about what happens in the U.S., like in folks in New Orleans right now, and I was listening to a bunch of stories coming out of New Orleans from various podcasts and news shows, and there's people without the ability to charge their phone. Cellular networks aren't reliable, and this definitely is what happened during, say, Hurricane Sandy in New York. It's definitely during Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. And, so there is the reality of the impact of hurricanes specifically, or an increase in weather-related events that can bring a need for something like what we're doing here and the apps that we want to promote. TrailSense, for instance, really interesting application. We didn't develop, but it's open source and in F-Droid, and it allows you to tells you just lots of stuff about your environment without needing the internet, and has different ways of conserving battery or using battery wisely at different times. And OSMand is very well known map, and we have the ability to deliver the map files offline that you need, or so you don't have to use data to get them, and to deliver those from a portable small Wi-Fi box server sitting on a truck, perhaps, for people to get information. Things like Briar and Umbrella are built around kind of activist use cases for communicating and also having information at hand, first aid information, right? And we have a number of things like during a disaster, medic log. Noise is an interesting one around minimizing stress. There's a lot of things you might need, and again, you don't want something that requires the internet. There's all these meditation apps that require the internet and streaming data, unlimited data, high quality meditation, sound, and battery impact. But why not just have something that doesn't require that? So this is one area where our work kind of on connectivity obviously kind of comes into play with what's been happening in the United States today and the last few days. The other side of this really is around, and I remember in the early days of working on Guardian Project-like things, maybe about 12 years ago, 13, when the issue of HTTP versus HTTPS, actually this goes back even farther, this goes back 21 years ago, more. Um, when the first Palm pilot, the Palm I7, I5, why am I forgetting the name of this? I should know. It was the Palm that flipped up with antenna. I probably have some portable computer that had a mobile data connection. And when you built the little web apps for it, which are basically progressive web apps, but 20 years ago, so they're more limited, you could choose HTTP connection or HTTPS. And the Palm developers, the platform builders, had chosen HTTPS or had provided it for financial. At least they knew you need HTTPS for banking or logging in. So it was awesome that they provided that. And I built an email application that could access any POP or IMAP or Hotmail. It was called Thin Air Mail. It was very popular. And I chose to use HTTPS for it. And which I thought was like, yeah, why not? All the time. It's your email. It's private. But at the time, if you may not remember, but HTTPS was really only used for your password when you logged in. But otherwise, it switched back to HTTP for like just reading your email, right? Of course, this is part of Snowden revelations and others that so much email could be intercepted over the wire without needing a warrant, and because there was no encryption at the transport level. And the reason there wasn't was it was computationally too intensive for people like Yahoo Mail and Hotmail and then eventually Google they needed more servers when they enabled HTTPS all the time for everything. That just is more load. It's more CPU load, especially when there isn't sort of specialized hardware or any sort of computational tuning in the CPU for these kinds of ciphers and encryption. And so the that idea that like, oh, they can't do it because it's going to use more computation. Well, eventually they did do it, right? And HTTPS everywhere, and these efforts by Electronic Frontier Foundation with things like and others with Let's Encrypt and HTTPS everywhere took hold, and we realized, wow, we really do need HTTPS all the time. And we made that shift, but it has to be recognized that that increases the use of electricity and burning of fossil fuels and requirements to cool, and all of these things that are that are causing the data centers to grow and grow and grow. And those can be that can be improved and managed and made more efficient. But similarly, the use of encryption on mobile devices and mobile apps, not only HTTPS, but say like in the matrix or signal encrypted messaging, where you're using something like HTTPS on the network, but you're also encrypting and decrypting every message to multiple keys of everyone in the room. There is a lot of intensive privacy related computation happening on someone's phone that requires more processor usage, which then requires more battery usage, more screen time, right? If something's slower, the user has to keep their screen on longer. And all of these things add up, right? All of this desire to say, well, privacy is good and we should encrypt everything. We have to think about not only the impact on the user, like someone whose device has a bad battery or is a more inexpensive device. They have constraints around power and processing, and they also have constraints around their time and patience. But also, that impact collectively on the world and on the climate, and burning of fossil fuels and not sustainable kind of sources of energy for these devices to charge. And, that's something that we've been working on, it's kind of just a goal across our apps, make them smaller, use more efficient encryption, where our encryption can be, hardware accelerated through ciphers supported by ARM processors. That should happen. And just always think about kind of not just privacy, but efficiency and the whole user experience of using your application. Because if someone has this ultimate super private application, but it uses all their data up because it has to download a blockchain, or it chugs away in their processor and kills their battery, that hasn't helped them. It's made their situation worse, in fact. So that's really what I wanted to think about and talk about with, relation to climate and privacy in today's daily vlog, is just that whole picture of the responsibilities as software developers to, especially ones coming from a place of privacy and security at the core, but for us to think about the impact that our code literally has on the climate and the earth, and second, to think about what the user experience is for people that are looking to enhance their privacy but are facing limitations on their devices. And it could be during a hurricane, could be because they don't have money, could be because they are live in a remote area, it could be because they're oppressed. So many reasons that people don't have the 5G unlimited 3-day battery, and that you shouldn't optimize just for those people. So and I think this is not a total novel idea, but it is interesting to think about it from the privacy angle and say, well, too much encryption can be a bad thing if you're thinking about the overall solution, or the choice of ciphers of the kind of encryption you use does matter, or the choice of if you're going to do an encrypted voice chat messaging program, you need to think about the size of the media that you are encrypting, or the resolution, right? And so and how you can kind of all make it work together in a way where the user says, oh, this feels fast, doesn't impact my battery. I can actually, and that reminds me, in my last 2 minutes here, each of these is about 20 minutes, it's something we've worked on with Tor quite a bit with Orbot. And there, we have tried to ensure that we're optimizing Tor for the ARM platform. But we also think about how the Tor process can and should, put itself to sleep. It's running all the time, but if you're not using it because your screen's off or none of your apps are trying to access the internet through Tor, then Tor should just go dormant. And we've added various sort of, with the Tor team, airplane modes and dormant kind of modes when it's not in use, and ways just to make it more efficient and to work in more lean environments. So that's exciting, and I think we've really brought Tor a long way on that front, where you can leave it Orbot kind of running all the time on your device with little impact. Though people still think they can't, and it's a perception issue sometimes as well. But also, what are you running through Tor? Is it, the full web or streaming YouTube or these things? Is that really, the amount of data you're trying to run through this complex onion-routed privacy-enhancing technology maybe isn't the right use case versus text messaging or small bits of information. I mean, people can do anything they want, but in this idea of when we're trying to enhance privacy and balance that with our impact on climate, we might want to consider what kind of applications we're building and how and when we add these layers of privacy and on top of that. So anyhow, I hope that you, your family, your friends, your colleagues are dry and safe and have a safe and clean place to sleep. And if not, if you're in a place that was affected recently by a natural disaster like a hurricane, like in the US, other parts of the world, I know climate impacts people all the time, especially those that live close to the water, and often very beautiful places, but that can be also quite deadly. So yeah, I hope that you all are well, and that people out there in the world are. And again, if you haven't checked out what we're doing at Second Wind, we're not really publicly launching it yet, but it's worth kind of going through, and you can look at get these apps. And just in general on F-Droid, there's a lot of really interesting apps, and maybe you can just see some of the things we found and how they could be useful in these situations, and get those loaded on your phone. I run this Trail Sense one I've really loved. Again, hadn't discovered it before, and yeah, I guess I should put this up here. I don't know. I'm still learning how to do this magical streaming stuff, but I hope you enjoy it. All right, well, take care of yourselves. Stay dry. Daily Vlog 2 is done. More tomorrow. Amazing. Good night. Take care.